It was supposed to be a celebration. Our 10th anniversary, a milestone, a promise kept, a future dream together. I'd booked us a table at the Marquis, one of the flashiest casinos on the Strip. She always said she wanted to feel like royalty once in her life. Tonight, I was going to make that happen. I wore my best suit, the dark navy one she loved, and God, she looked stunning. A crimson dress that turned heads when we walked in, and that smile, the one that used to be just for me. I should have felt like the luckiest guy in the room. Instead, something twisted in my gut. At first, I thought it was just nerves. Big night, big expectations. But as we sat at the poker table, drinks in hand, I started noticing things. It was the way her laughter came a little too easily at the dealer's jokes. How her eyes lingered on the man across from us, some silver-haired stranger with a Rolex and an easy grin, longer than necessary. The way she leaned in, touched his wrist when she laughed. Like I wasn't even sitting 2 feet away. Relax, I told myself, sipping my bourbon, you're being paranoid. It's nothing. Just Vegas, everyone's a little loose here. But the thing about instincts? They don't whisper, they roar. And mine were getting louder by the second. The man at the table, he wasn't just friendly. He was magnetic. The way he talked, the way he smiled at her like they shared some secret. And my wife? She wasn't just polite. She was glowing, alive in a way I hadn't seen in months. Maybe longer. I tried to join the conversation, laugh along, crack a joke or two. But it was like shouting across a canyon. She barely glanced at me, answering with distracted nods, her attention locked on him. I gripped my glass tighter. This wasn't my imagination. This wasn't a movie in my head. This was real. The room felt hotter. Louder. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I excused myself to the bar, needing a breather, needing to remind myself who I was. You're her husband, I muttered under my breath, staring at my reflection in the dark glass. You're the man she chose. The man who's been by her side through thick and thin. And yet, when I turned back toward the table, there she was, laughing like a teenager, brushing her hair behind her ear, smiling in a way that didn't belong to me anymore. I downed my drink in one long swallow. Maybe it was just Vegas. Maybe it was just the champagne. Maybe, and this was the part that hurt the most, maybe I was seeing the beginning of the end, and I was the only one who didn't know it yet. I walked back to the table, pasted on a smile, and tried to act like I wasn't watching every glance, every touch, every stolen second between them. But deep down, something ugly had started to grow inside me. Something that whispered. You're losing her. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't know if I could stop it. The night didn't slow down. It just kept slipping away from me, like water through my fingers. Back at the table, my wife, her name's Emily, by the way, wasn't even pretending anymore. She was sitting closer to him now. Laughing at everything he said, twirling a strand of her hair the way she used to do with me when we first met. I watched, silent, as her hand brushed his arm again, lingering too long to be innocent. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a steel band around it. I reached for her hand under the table, an instinct, a need to pull her back to me, but she didn't notice. Or maybe she noticed and chose not to react. Same difference, right? The dealer kept throwing cards, the chips kept clinking, the lights kept flashing, but it was all background noise now. The real show was happening 2 feet in front of me, and I was the only fool who didn't have a ticket. Emily leaned in to say something to him, close enough that her perfume, that soft vanilla scent she always wore for me, drifted across the table. He laughed, flashing that perfect white smile, and the way she beamed at him, it hit me harder than I care to admit. I sipped my drink again. It tasted like ashes. The anger started creeping in then, not the loud, shouting kind, but the cold kind. The kind that makes you sit a little straighter, breathe a little slower, because you know if you move wrong, you might just break apart. You're imagining it, I tried telling myself again, gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. She's just being friendly. It's just the atmosphere. But friendly didn't look like that. Friendly didn't look like forgetting your husband existed. I thought back to our first anniversary, 2 kids stumbling through life, broke but happy. We'd stayed in a ratty little motel off the highway, living on pizza and cheap beer, laughing like idiots. She couldn't keep her hands off me back then. Like just being near me was enough to make her light up inside. Now she barely glanced at me. I tried to catch her eye. Tried to send a silent, "Hey, I'm still here," message across the table. But she was too busy living in a world where I didn't exist. And for the first time that night, the thought slipped in, sharp and cruel. Maybe she doesn't want to come back. It wasn't just the way she looked at him. It was the way she didn't look at me. The casino around me blurred a little, voices blending into a low, meaningless roar. I rubbed my hand across my face, trying to snap myself out of it. I had 2 options, pretend nothing was happening, or face a truth I wasn't ready for. Guess which one I picked? I pasted on a hollow smile and kept sitting there, a ghost at my own party, while my wife flirted with a stranger like I was just some forgettable chapter from a story she'd already decided to rewrite. Minutes dragged into hours. I lost track of how many drinks I had. At some point, the stranger, he finally introduced himself as Carter, suggested moving to the bar. Emily jumped at the idea before I could say a word. "Come on, babe," she said, tossing the words over her shoulder like an afterthought, "let's have some real fun." Babe. Like an echo of something we used to be. I followed them, a step behind, the third wheel in my own marriage. And as I watched her at the bar, laughing, leaning in, her hand brushing his shoulder like they were old friends with secrets, something inside me finally broke. The truth was no longer something I could ignore. Something had changed. Maybe it had been changing for a long time, and I just refused to see it. But tonight? Tonight it was undeniable. The woman who once looked at me like I was her whole world was now looking at another man like he might just be her new one. And I, fool that I was, had paid for the champagne. The bar was a mess of noise and color. Carter ordered another round, spinning some story about his latest business venture, while Emily listened like he was the most fascinating man alive. Me. I stood there, drink in hand, feeling like the ground was tilting beneath my feet. I couldn't take it anymore. I leaned in close, trying to keep my voice even. I said, touching her arm lightly, "Can we talk for a second? Alone." For a split second, something flickered across her face, surprise. Guilt. Annoyance. I couldn't tell anymore. She gave me that rehearsed, dismissive smile. "Now? Really? We're just having fun, babe." Babe. Again. Like a band-aid slapped on a gunshot wound. "Please," I said quietly, more desperate than I intended. "Just 5 minutes." Carter smirked, raising his glass in mock surrender. "Go easy on him, sweetheart." Sweetheart. My stomach turned. Emily rolled her eyes, not playfully, but with an edge, and set her drink down. "Fine," she said sharply. 5 minutes. We stepped away from the bar, weaving through the crowds toward a quieter corner near the oversized marble fountains. The roar of the casino dulled behind us, replaced by the soft splash of water and the low hum of music. For a moment, it was just us. And it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. She crossed her arms, tapping one heel against the floor, impatient. "So," she said. "What's so important you had to drag me away?" Her tone hit me like a slap. It wasn't just offensive, it was irritated. Bothered. I swallowed hard. I hadn't even figured out what I was going to say. I'd just known I couldn't stand there and watch anymore. I don't know," I admitted, running a hand through my hair. You're different tonight. Different how? She asked, voice clipped. I don't know, I repeated, hating how small I sounded. Distant. Like I'm not even here. She laughed, a short, humorless sound. Oh my God, you're being ridiculous. We're in Vegas. It's called having fun. Is that what this is? I asked quietly. Fun. She rolled her eyes again and looked away, scanning the room like she couldn't wait to get back to the party. I took a breath, feeling the words burn their way up my throat. Emily, are you happy? I asked. She stiffened, arms tightening across her chest. What kind of question is that? She snapped. A real one, I said, keeping my voice low. I need to know if we're still, us. Her eyes darted back to mine, and for a moment I saw something real flicker there, fear? Sadness? But just as fast, it was gone. The wall went back up. I'm fine, she said flatly. You're overthinking everything. You're always overthinking. I stared at her, really stared, at the tired set of her mouth, the coldness in her eyes, the way she kept shifting her weight like she was ready to bolt. We weren't fine. We hadn't been fine for a long time. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Look, she said, sighing, I'm not doing this tonight. Okay. It's our anniversary. Can we just pretend to be happy for once? Is that what you've been doing? I asked, not even meaning to say it out loud. She flinched, barely, and then shook her head with a bitter little laugh. You know what? She said. Forget it. And before I could say anything else, she turned on her heel and stalked back toward the bar, toward Carter, toward whatever life she was trying to find without me. I stood there by the fountain for a long time, watching the water shimmer under the neon lights, feeling like I'd just lost a fight I didn't even know I'd been fighting. And the worst part? I didn't even know if I wanted to win anymore. I didn't follow her back to the bar. I stayed there by the fountain, letting the cool mist hit my face, trying to wrestle my anger into something I could control. I wasn't the type to make a scene. Never had been. But tonight, it felt like everything inside me, years of loyalty, of trying to be enough, was coming apart. And standing there, under the hollow neon glow, I realized something I hadn't let myself admit before. I deserved the truth. Even if it broke me. I found her about 15 minutes later, laughing too loud, drink in hand, Carter's hand on her back like it had every right to be there. When she saw me coming, her smile faltered just a little, just enough to tell me she knew exactly why I was here. I didn't give her a choice this time. I took her hand, not rough, but firm, and steered her away from the bar, ignoring the curious glances. She tried to protest, but I didn't stop until we were outside, under the night sky, away from the noise and the flashing lights. There, in the cool desert air, I let the words out before I could stop myself. Are you sleeping with him? Her mouth dropped open, shocked, maybe offended, but I didn't buy it. Not anymore. Are you? I repeated, my voice like gravel. She hesitated. For the first time all night, she didn't have a quick answer. And that silence? It said more than anything she could have spoken. Finally, she found her voice, sharp, defensive. Jesus, is that what you think of me? I don't know what to think anymore, I shot back. Maybe because you've spent the whole night hanging off him like I don't even exist. You're being paranoid, she snapped. This is exactly why I can't breathe around you anymore. Breathe? I repeated, stunned. You think being married to me is suffocating? She crossed her arms, glaring at me like I was the villain in her story. You don't get it, do you? She said, her voice rising. I'm tired. I'm tired of feeling invisible. Of living the same day over and over while you sit there thinking everything's fine. I stared at her, the anger draining out of me, replaced by something colder. Something final. You could have talked to me, I said. You could have fought for us. Instead, you chose this. She shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes but her voice steady. I didn't plan for this to happen. I didn't wake up one day and decide to hate my life. No, I said quietly. You just decided to leave it, piece by piece, and hoped I wouldn't notice. The wind picked up, carrying the sounds of the strip, music, laughter, life. It felt a million miles away. You think Carter's your answer? I asked. You think he's going to save you from your own emptiness? She didn't respond. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe deep down she already knew the truth. I took a breath, trying to steady my hands. I loved you, Emily, I said, my voice low, almost a whisper. God help me, I still do. She wiped a tear from her cheek, but there was no apology in her eyes. Only resignation. I just need to be free, she said. Free. Like I was a prison sentence she'd finally served long enough. I nodded, feeling something inside me, something sacred, finally snap. Then be free, I said. And I walked away. Not because I didn't love her. But because, for the first time in a long, long while, I finally loved myself more. I didn't get far. Just down the sidewalk, past the line of cabs and tourists and neon signs blinking like false promises. I stood there a while, hands jammed into my pockets, letting the desert night whip around me. Letting it all sink in. I had spent so long fighting for her, for us, that I didn't even realize when I became the only one still fighting. I don't know how long I stood there, breathing in the stale smell of cigarette smoke and asphalt, before I heard her footsteps behind me. Soft. Hesitant. Wait, she called out. I turned, slowly, bracing for whatever came next. She caught up, clutching her little clutch purse like it could shield her from what she'd done. Please, she said, voice cracking. Don't just walk away like this. I didn't say anything. I let the silence press down between us. You're throwing everything away over one bad night, she asked, desperate now. I almost laughed. One bad night. If only it were that simple. You want to be free, remember? I said, my voice low. Controlled. I didn't mean it like that, she insisted. I need to find myself again. Find yourself? I echoed. By climbing into another man's arms. She flinched, but I didn't let up. You didn't lose yourself, I said. You gave yourself away. Piece by piece. You just never thought I'd notice. Her lip trembled. She looked smaller now, shrunken somehow. I made mistakes, she whispered. No, I said. You made choices. There's a difference. Mistakes you fix. Choices you live with. She reached for my hand, a move she must have thought would still work, but I stepped back. That simple movement shattered something between us for good. Her face crumpled. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. And for the first time, I believed her. But it wasn't enough. Because what she was sorry for was getting caught. Not for leaving me alone in the marriage long before tonight. I shook my head slowly. You wanted freedom, Emily. You got it. She opened her mouth, closed it again. No excuses left. You're right about one thing, I said. We were stuck. But I wasn't the one who gave up. The weight of those words hung between us, heavier than anything we could have screamed. I turned to leave again, really leave, but she called after me, voice breaking. Is this it? I stopped, looking back one last time. You ended it, I said. I'm just honoring the decision you already made. Her shoulders sagged, like she'd been punched in the gut. Maybe she expected a fight. Maybe she thought I'd beg, bargain, plead. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes love has to die so that self-respect can live. Without another word, I walked away, leaving her under the blinking lights and the thumping bass of other people's laughter. For the first time that night, I didn't feel like the one losing something. I felt like the one getting something back. The house was dark when I got home. Not a single light on. Not even the porch lamp that she used to leave burning for me, back when she cared if I made it home safe. I stood there for a minute, key in hand, staring at the front door like it belonged to someone else's life. Then I unlocked it, stepped inside, and let the silence swallow me whole. The place smelled the same, her perfume faint on the air, a ghost of the woman I'd loved. Everything looked normal, her shoes by the door, a jacket slung over the couch, half a glass of wine forgotten on the coffee table. But nothing was normal. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and just stood there. The house creaked in the quiet. The fridge kicked on with a low hum. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once, then fell silent. I walked through the living room, my footsteps sounding too loud. Through the kitchen, where the sink was full of dishes she'd promised to wash. Down the hallway, where our wedding photo still hung, me in a rented tux, her in a white dress, smiling like the world was ours to take. I stopped in front of it. Stared at it until the image blurred. And then, carefully, almost gently, I reached up, took it down, and turned it face down on the side table. I couldn't look at it anymore. Not tonight. Maybe not ever again. I made it to our bedroom, no, the bedroom now, and sat heavily on the edge of the bed. Her side was still messy, the covers tangled where she'd thrown them off the night before. I could still smell her shampoo on the pillow. I pressed my hands into my thighs, breathing hard, willing myself not to break. Because breaking would mean she still had that kind of power over me. And tonight, finally, I was choosing myself over the ruins she'd left behind. I stood up. Walked to the closet. Grabbed an overnight bag. I didn't need much, just enough to get through the next few days. I wasn't staying here. Not in this house full of memories that weren't real anymore. Not with the weight of everything we'd lost pressing down on me like a tombstone. I packed in silence, methodical. Jeans. T-shirts. A shaving kit. Left my wedding ring sitting neatly on the nightstand, like a gift I no longer wanted to keep. Before I walked out, I took one last look around. The room. The life. The man I used to be. And then I shut the door behind me. I didn't slam it. I didn't leave angry. I left empty. And somehow, that felt worse. The motel was nothing special, cracked parking lot, buzzing neon sign half-lit, but it was clean, and it was anonymous. The woman at the front desk didn't even blink when I slid my driver's license across the counter. Just handed me a room key and pointed down the hall. I dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto the lumpy mattress. I stared at the ceiling for a long time. Thought about the promises we made. The battles we fought. The little moments, lazy Sunday mornings, inside jokes, whispered goodnights, that now felt like lies whispered over a loaded gun. I should have been furious. I should have wanted to smash something, scream into the night. But mostly I just felt tired. Bone deep, soul tired. Like I'd been carrying both of us for years, and my arms had finally given out. Around 3 a.m, I got up and stood by the motel window, looking out at the empty parking lot bathed in sickly yellow light. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. Somewhere in this city, she was probably crying into her pillow. Or maybe she wasn't crying at all. Maybe she was sleeping peacefully, relieved to finally be free. It didn't matter anymore. Because tonight, I was free too. Broken. But free. And for the first time in a long, long time, I realized something. I might have lost her. But I hadn't lost myself. The morning came slowly, leaking through the thin motel curtains in a weak, gray smear. I sat on the edge of the bed, sipping a bitter cup of motel coffee, staring at nothing. No texts. No calls. Just silence. It should have scared me, that total absence of her. But instead, it felt clean. Like standing in the middle of a burned forest, breathing air that wasn't choked with smoke anymore. I checked out without saying much. Tossed my bag into the passenger seat, cranked the engine, and just drove. No destination in mind. No plan. Just the road, stretching out ahead of me like a promise I hadn't dared believe in until now. By noon, I found myself parked outside a diner about 20 minutes from town, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and waitresses who called you honey without thinking about it. I sat at the counter, nursing a refillable cup of black coffee, watching the world go by. That's where my old friend Mike found me. He slid into the seat beside me, waving off the waitress when she asked if he wanted a menu. "Just coffee," he said. "And whatever sad pie you got left." I couldn't help it. I laughed, a real, rough-edged laugh that caught me off guard. Mike clapped me on the shoulder. "Knew I'd find you in a place like this," he said, grinning. "Yeah, well," I muttered, "you know me. Always chasing the high life." He studied me for a second, serious now. "How bad was it?" I didn't answer right away. Just stared into my coffee cup like it might spell it out for me. Finally, I said, "Worse than I thought. Better than dragging it out." He nodded, like he understood without needing the gory details. "You staying at the house?" "No," I said, voice low. Couldn't breathe in there. Mike nodded again, slow and thoughtful. "You gonna fight for it?" he asked. I thought about it, about the house, the furniture, the life we built together like a set of props on a stage. And for the first time, I realized. I didn't want any of it. Let her have the walls and the furniture. Let her sit in the ruins she helped create. I was taking something more important with me. My dignity. My peace. My future. "I'm not fighting for the ashes," I said finally. Mike smiled, proud, maybe, and raised his coffee cup like a toast. Smart man. We sat there a while longer, talking about nothing important, football, old college stories, half-baked plans for a fishing trip we both knew would never happen. And somewhere between the second refill of coffee and the terrible slice of lemon pie, I realized something. I wasn't alone. Not really. I had friends who would stand with me. A future that hadn't been written yet. A life still waiting to be claimed. Yeah, it hurt like hell. Yeah, there would be nights when the silence would crush me. Yeah, I'd wake up sometimes reaching for a woman who wasn't there anymore, and maybe never really was. But I would survive it. I would build something new from the wreckage. Not for her. Not to prove anything to anyone. But for me. Because some things, like self-respect, and quiet hope, are worth fighting for. Even when the world tells you to stay broken, stay bitter, stay small. When I walked out of that diner, the sun was shining, not bright, not dazzling. But steady. Like it was rooting for me. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't afraid of the road ahead. I was ready for it.